everyone, and welcome to your first class for Full Stack Web Development course. This is your mentor, Swati Yadav, and I extend my warm welcome to you guys. Okay, so let's get ahead, dig into the course. So our first class would be kind of like a basic introduction to get you guys familiar with a few of the terms, as well as, just to let you on know that what is, web development, maybe what's a website, how internet works. So these are the topics that we'll be covering today. So I gathered that you guys are interested in becoming a developer, right? So congratulations and welcome to your new career. So before we start with any kind of, tech stack and start learning it, I think it is essential for us to get familiar with a few terms that you might come across every now and then, So the first term is, what is web development exactly? What do we understand by web development? Why web development is important? And what kind of developers are there? So, when we start with anything, we start learning anything, we kind of aspire to become something, right? So we need to consider a few options over here. So that's just the basic thing that the idea that I want you guys to have before you dive deep into this code. So in a few words, I would say that web development involves creation and maintenance of websites, right? And now what is a website? Maybe for some of you guys, website is also a new term that you might be hearing right now, or the thing that there is a website but not aware of how it looks like, or what it exactly is. So what's a website actually? So in simple terms, a website, it's a collection of web pages, and the web pages these are the online pages that you can view by using the internet. We go onto the browser, we type something over there, we search, and we get a few suggestions. We open the websites over there, right? The web service on a computer or on our smartphone. So just give me a moment. So here, the very first term that we are discussing is a website. So a website, it's nothing, it's a collection of web pages. Yep. So web pages, these are the online pages that, that you can view by using the internet or any kind of web service on a computer or on a smartphone, laptops, anything, right? For example, like a website called as Java Tea Point, that's a website, okay? So there are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that you need to get familiar with before you can start with, actually learning the tech stacks. Like the next thing is how you can, or what is a website it's used for, or, how many types of websites are there. So every website on the internet, it's built with a specific purpose. You need to, let's say, you need to get some information regarding some health information. So there is a different website for that. There is a sports website for just the sports kind of news, let's say, or a blog, you could say. So every website on the internet, it's built with a specific purpose or goal, right? So the organizations and business, through their websites, they aim to provide information and services. Okay, so information and services is something that you get through a website. So that is another one point for that, to the members and their customers. So they have also become kind of like a medium of entertainment, like playing online games. You can play games online, you can watch movie, listen to music, etc., etc. There is a lot that we can do now, right? Similarly, if we talk about e-commerce websites, so we are all aware of Amazon, we are aware of Myntra. What are these? Flipkart. What are these? These are e-commerce websites that, lets us sell and buy things online, right? So Amazon, it's one of the top e-commerce companies, right? It's in a, it runs like $1 billion business. We are just its website only, There are different types of websites, you might have heard of a term called as blog. So there is a blog, so which provides some information on a website. You might sometimes get confused with, is website same as a blog or is blog same as a website? So blog comes under the umbrella of a website, okay, because blogs are kind of those you could say websites or pages wherein you get certain information on various topics, right? Then you have some entertainment websites, like which allows you to watch movies, listen to some songs, watch some videos, games, and anything like a YouTube. So YouTube is a entertainment website, you could say. Then you have news portals, like you could have a news portal for BCC, we have for Times of India, and so on, right? For New York Times as well. So then we have some other kinds of websites, like social media sites. We have like the Facebook, we have Facebook. So that's a social media website. You have education websites. Like for education, there are different websites, you can, our own website, we have like Unikaksha. And then there are different, platforms that you can see, like maybe Geeks for Geek, Coding Ninjas. These are different, websites that you can go and practice and so on. You have government websites. We have government websites, NICU, etc. So they provide different types of, information and services, and saves a great deal of time to, maybe resolve a queries, put some complaints online, and for that all purpose, you can simply do that. We have search engine sites as well, like google.com, like bing.com, and so on, right? So that is what, basically a website means. When now coming back to web development, what is the web development? So web development is just wherein you are trying to, build websites, you're trying to build the web apps, and trying to maintain it. So that's the whole process. There is a whole process involved for web development as well. So there are two types or two terms that you might have heard. One is front end and back end, right? What we'll be studying here in the course, that is full stack web development. That means we are combining front end and back end together, and we are going to be a full stack web developers. But there are two terms that you can distinguish, okay, which is front end and back end developers. Now, if you are even new to web development, you've probably heard these terms, right? These are all over the market, I'm a front end developer, I'm a back end developer, I'm a full stack developer. So front end development has to do with the interface, what we see in front of a screen, right? Right now on your screen, what do you see? That's the work of a front end, the designing part, the user interaction, that is being done by the front end developers. They create everything you see on a web page, including they give the colors, their layouts, the navigation and everything. Now, back-end developers, on the other hand, we have front end and back end. Okay, so now back-end development has to do with a part of the website that we can't see, that is not visible to us. So particularly how website information is stored, how that information is stored, how that information, whatever is coming through that website, is being processed and, retrieved and is utilized in the whole, whatever application you've created. That is the work of the backend, So when you access a web page in your browser, you're essentially requesting to see a file which is stored on a server. Okay? So there is something called as client servers as well. So client is you, who request any resource, who wants to take a look at any website, is demanding for any picture, let's say, or kind of like those videos. So you're a client, the machine is a client on which you're trying to access that. The server is the one where that information is stored, and you're just trying to retrieve that from there. So when you load a web page for the first time, or you sign into a website with the username and password that you have, it's backend developers' work who make it possible to access that website information efficiently and securely. Okay, so that's the part of the backend that lets you, that's the person who is responsible, that lets you interact with it, that lets you do the work that you wanted to do. Front end is responsible for what you will be seeing on the screen. If you click some buttons, if you open the website, that is the front end. Okay, so now this is the basic of web development. Okay, so what is the whole process of web development is that, suppose that there is a client, there is a new client that you have. Now, this is the process of developing any, application or any website that you need to be aware of. You could say that, you might have heard of a term called as software development life cycle. I'm not getting much into that, but just a general terms that you should be aware, right? So suppose that there is a client, that needs a website and has asked you, has given you the work to develop one. Now, where do you start? Someone comes in and say, hey, Swati, I need a website. I need a school website, right? They just tell you that. Okay, just excuse me for a moment. Right. So they come in and they say that, Swati, I need a school website, and create one for me. Fine. Now, is that enough for me that someone comes and tell me create a website and I get started with it? What do you guys think? Is it enough? No, right? No. So the process, it's a whole process which involves the web development. Okay, so whether you are creating a website or any web application with a team of 3 or even 300, web development tends to follow some of the following steps, which I'm going to tell you now. That is, the first step is the information gathering. You need to gather some information, So the first step which comes, or you could say that this is also called as requirement gathering. You might heard or hear this term called as requirement gathering or information gathering. Okay. So it includes addressing internal factors like, what's the sole purpose of your whole, website development? You are trying to develop a website. Why do you need one, right? What are the external factors which are involved in that? Like information about the target audience, who will be the audience, right, for whom you're trying to create. Now, if I ask you to create a school website, that's not enough, right? I need to know who will be interacting with that. Is it for the teachers that we are making? Is it for the students? It's for the parent portal, what we are trying to make over there, right? And are there any competing websites that we try to compete with? Different schools maybe. Are we, keeping that in mind as well? So questions you'll need to answer during this stage, they include, right, why the client is creating this website, what is the need of this website, why they want to visit, who are the audience, who are the people they're targeting over there, right? The audience. Then the next is, what will people be able to do on this website? What's the interaction you want over there? Some information portal, something like a blog, just some, quick points about the school, let's say, or you want an actual interaction over there, maybe some, a portal where parents can, look up the timetable, maybe the activities, the upcoming events, the scores, the results and everything. What is the purpose, why are we needing that? And why will people want to use a client's website instead of someone else? And what is the whole agenda, regarding that? So that is some of the information or requirement gathering that we need to do. Then next comes a part which is called as planning. Okay. So once you understand the purpose of your website and what kind of people you want to visit, right? It's time to start planning. So once you have all the requirements, once you have all the information why this website is required, you start planning for it, you start planning. And during this stage, you could say development teams or the developers, they put together an outline. They give you kind of like a structure. They kind of like give you a model, or outline of a prototype, you could say, of the website and its web pages. This is also known as site map. Okay. Now think of the site map as a skeleton of any website, of this particular website, let's say. And web developers use the site maps to flesh out how web pages will link to each other through menus and how website data should be structured on the web server. Okay, that is the planning phase. Next, what you have is the design phase. Okay, so after planning, you move on to design. Okay, you might have heard of a term called as a SRS in planning. It also comes in planning as well. Now design. In this design phase, the dev team, the developers, they begin to create something. The actual creation, you start working with the code. That is a part of your design phase. It starts, So maybe like layouts, images, logos, colors, fonts, and everything. The aesthetic features are put together over there, and it's visualized during this phase only, in the designing phase, right? Now the client may provide an existing logo maybe, or a color scheme, whatever, or be open to your designs and you work according to that. So sometimes they have their own requirements. They come up with, we want a purple website, so you make a purple website, kind of like a colored scheme. Now next, you and the client will agree on a layout. You are going to work on the layout, how it's going to look, what will be the information structure, okay, and maybe the aesthetic direction to guide the rest of the web development project. The next part which comes over here is the content creation in your design, in your website or in your web app. Okay, next is your content creation that you need to do. That is, now, until now, the web dev team, they have put in placeholder images. When we are trying to present a layout, you show them like kind of like a dummy. So at that time, we might not have every information that has to go up on the on the website. So we put some lorem ipsum type of things. Now the next is content creation. So until now, the web development team will have put in like placeholder images or text in the web design until the real content is ready to be inserted. Now when you have the real content, you start putting that, and typically it's up to the client to provide the content. So the content that needs to go over there, that's the client's responsibility, right? What they need over there. So, and because content creation can be done throughout the rest of the web development process, the content should be ready as soon as the design phase is finished. So as soon as you're finished designing the whole website, the web app, your content should be ready so that it can go up on the website. So at this point, the web development team may work with the client closely to adjust maybe like the word count and the content placement and the character limits for maybe menus, and to ensure that the images and videos, or they all look full size. They are not maybe kind of going all over the place, or they are not pixelated, and so on. Okay, then the next part which comes is coding. So in designing, you use the design tools. Now you will come to coding. So once the website design and the content are finalized, it's time to start coding for it. Okay. So at this point, both front end and the backend developers, they are going to work to turn the website design on paper or something which is, not so concrete, into a working reality that functions within a browser, So the coding process itself, it depends on the size of the project, that you're trying to work, the design approach of the development team. For example, a small project for any informational website might involve just a couple of programmers, working together. Now, a large scale web application might involve team of developers. They are adopting, different approaches like agile approach you might have heard of, they are having scrum meetings, kind of those things. After coding, you go for testing. And after testing, there is launch of the product. So that also comes like, just like any software, the software development process, here also we have to, test, so websites, they also need to be tested and they need to be debugged before they can, or they are ready to go live. Okay. So a large scale web application might over here, that means you develop some test cases. You develop some test cases over here and ensure that the website code, it follows a client's QA QC procedure, whatever are the quality checks, it follows that. It adheres to what was the client's demand in the first place. So web development testing, it might include checking all the hyperlinks which are going up there, searching for any typos, ensuring that the website works, the data it goes, it gets fetched, it gets saved, every kind of those things. It works on different browsers and different websites. You have created a responsive design over there. Finally, the website is ready to be uploaded to the web server and accessed publicly over the internet. So that is the launch. Once you've launched, once the website is up there, it's functioning, it's working fine, people are using it. Now the very important phase, which is a lifelong phase of your website, as long as you want it to work, is maintenance. So after website is up and running, it still needs to be maintained. They need to be updated for maybe like team members, for any kind of blog information, any data which is changing, you need to maintain that. Any product services removed or added. So on the back end, a website or web application that stores customer data will need to ensure that the databases are secure, right? So you are also trying to maintain a database over there. The database should be secure. It should have ample, the database should be ample in storage so that it can take on the load which comes every now and then. And there are latest data privacy regulations that needs to be followed. That this is the process of your website, or you could say of your web development, and you guys should be aware of it before you start with, coding. So coding is fairly simple, but you need to have a clear understanding of what you're trying to build, what is the whole procedure, So now let's talk about brief history of web development. So we've talked about what is web development, we've talked about website, different kinds of website. Now what is the history, how did it came into existence maybe? So let's talk about that. So as web developers, there are arsenal of tools that you can of frameworks that you can use, and that are at our fingertips, that can be used. But it's important to remember that this hasn't always been the case. You see, right now we have so many resources available for us. We are millennials or Gen Z generation, that we have so much information. Our life, it got pretty simple, to be very honest. So I want to maybe research on a topic, I have so many or different papers on hand, I can just type in and I get that. Earlier it was not the case. There was not so many resources available when the internet, it was just started. Like you had Netscape Navigator or geosites, and you had to scavenge the internet, or you could say interweb, to find a solution to your any problem. And I think we have to appreciate what we have today. the kind of exposure that we have today, and God knows what will happen after 5 years from now. You know, the kind of data, the everything I think is available. In my extent, everything is there on the internet that I could find. And it's important to look back and reflect. Okay, so that was in 1993. It's kind of like just a quick, recap or history of how web development has, kind of evaluated in the years over now. So it was in year 1993, okay, that when the father of HTML, and who is that? He's called as Tim Berners-Lee, okay? Tim Berners-Lee. So he wrote the first version of HTML at that time, 1993. And he was a physicist and a computer scientist who implemented the first successful communication between an HTTP client. Okay. So that was the year when we actually started hearing of HTML. It was 1993. So HTML had its, many iterations throughout the year. The current that we are using is HTML5, if you guys are aware of. The different versions that have come up over the year was in 1995, then 1997. HTML5, it came out around in, I think, in 2011. So it came out in 2011. And during the first year of HTML, if you guys have seen any plain HTML page, you know how ugly it looks, because there is no styling applied to it. So during its first year, when it was plain HTML, no other styling that was being applied to it, it looked pretty bad, But it started to change when in 1994, another, you could say the programmer called as, his name was Hakon Vyom Lee, and he proposed CSS, cascading style sheets. So this is for, styling style sheets. They are for designing the websites, and the first release of CSS at that time, it stirred a little drama around, and it was perceived by many being too simple for the task it was designed for. But we know now that CSS is something, that you cannot imagine your website without. It plays an important role in building the whole aesthetics, the looks of your website. It creates the interactive part of your website. The interactive I talk about, when I come to any website and I don't see, if a website is just plain old, kind of like a flat structure, would you like to spend some time on it? Would you try to find something on it, read something on it? No, right? You think they have not put enough efforts in designing the website, the information here might not be correct. Kind of that mindset that we have when we visit any website. So to make it much interactive, to make it much fun for the readers out there, though, for the audience, CSS has played an important part all throughout, right? So now, after a year or so, in 1997, I think W3C Consortium, which is a World Wide Web Consortium, it made CSS kind of like a, you could say a recommendation, that it needs to be used. Okay. Then eventually came another thing, which is called as JavaScript. And it came in 1995. And the one who did was, it was Brandon Pike. He brought, or he's the father of, JavaScript. And what's JavaScript now? So we'll get into the details of JavaScript, in another class, but it's the, for the server side scripting and for the client side scripting, we use JavaScript. For all the functionality, we need JavaScript for that. Okay. So this is a short history of solid foundations of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Of course, these languages alone, you could say they cannot do much, and for that, there is a lot that we need to learn all throughout a course, you know. So, but we'll start with JavaScript and we'll move on to different different tech stacks like HTML, CSS, Bootstrap, jQuery, Sass, React, and so on. Okay. So if you have got, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to raise your hands, put it in Q&As. I see that you guys are not interacting over here. So I really want to move forward. So if you have a question, please put it down there. Okay. So now the last topic for our today's session is how do websites work? That is again something that we need to know, right? As we'll be, web developers now. So before you begin creating your own websites and launch it to the internet, it's important for all of us to know how these websites they work, right? The basic terms that we have acquainted ourselves is a website. It's just a simple collection of web pages or codes that describes a layout, format, and content on a page. We know about a web server as well. So web server is an internet connected computer. It's again a computer, that receives a request for any web page which is sent by a browser. It might be hosting your website that you're trying to access. The browser that we know, we all use browsers daily, right? Chrome, mostly used, Edge again. So the browser, it connects your computer to the server through an IP address. There is an IP address as well. And the IP address is obtained by translating the domain name. There is a domain name like something, @outlook.com, kind of like that, that is all done automatically by your browser. So you don't need to worry about that, that what's the IP address, what's the domain name or something like that. So in order to display your website on the internet, you need a website, you need a domain name, you need a server, you need a browser as well. So a website, we've already discussed about a website. Now to create a website, right? So just because, a web page is written in codes, just because you write it in codes, doesn't mean you need to get an IT geek to, to create. There are so many different, for any novice out there, now you can actually, do it very simply. But again, to have the knowledge, but again, to start with something, that's why to actually pursue it as a career, that's why we learn these things, So everything that we need to know is, when we start with, as we try to become the developers, we have to choose a path here as well, in full stack web development. When we start with websites or web development, there also, okay, we need to start with what is the path we choose. So the path that we have chosen over here is MERN, which is, we'll be learning Mongo, Express, React, and Node to create some cool websites. There are so many capstone projects that you'll be doing. Okay. Now, the next thing is, what's a domain name? So a domain name is the address. So we are talking about domain name. Okay, I see a question has come up. Yes, I'm coming to DNS. I'm going to talk about DNS only. How is web designing? It's different from web development. Web designing is something which is concerned with the front end part. We talked about front end and back end both. So web designing is something which is concerned with the front end only, where you are making use of the design tools to give a layout of how your website needs to, appear once the whole development is done for it, or before you launch it. So designing is concerned with that. There are designers, web designers, those make use of the designing tools to give you a layout. They give a layout to the developers, that you have to start creating this pattern, this kind of website over there. So designing is the front end that they give you. Okay. The development is both. Development means that you've got a layout. I talked about the design phase where you are designing the website with the help of designing tools. One tool that you might have heard is Canva, another is Figma, that you make use of to give a layout. Okay. And you have a layout, you pass it on to the development team. Now the development team will put that layout in action. They are going to start designing the front end. Now they actually start coding that. So that is a part of web development when you start coding for it. You will be making use of HTML, CSS, React, JS to design that. You are going to add some backend into it as well. So that is the difference between web designing and web development. I have also covered what is a blog and a website. So website is just a basic, it's a collection of, web pages, and that can be informational, entertainment, any kind of thing that you're trying to make, maybe like an social site, social media website that you have. A blog is a website which is informational, where you only get some information out. There is no kind of other interaction on it, but on a website, you can have interactions. Okay. Now talking about DNS or domain name, let's start. So domain name is the address, it's the address that you type, okay, into your web browser. The address bar that we have at the top, there you start typing something to search for to get to a website. For example, domain name could be like www. Let's say outlook.com, okay, or www.unikaksha.com. Just an example over here. So a domain name, okay, now you related with DNS. So a domain name is unique to a website. So in other words, these are unique. You don't have other unikaksha.com. It's just us. You don't have any other outlook.com. It's just only one Outlook that you have. So it's, it's unique to a website. So in other words, no two websites can have the same domain name. Okay. While it is true that you don't necessarily need a custom domain name for your website. Many website builders out there, they help you with the domain name. So, as part of a developer, you'll be responsible for that as well. You can start with some domain names also that you can put for your own websites, So here, that is your domain name that we have. Then you have a web server. Now, a web server is a computer we've talked about that receives a request for a web page, which is sent by a browser, Now, let's suppose there is a company, and that's hiring for any position that has just opened up, and you are in charge of writing the job ad. You are someone who is going to put the job ad, the JD over there maybe. And you may have crafted the most compelling ad, but unless you post the ad somewhere, it's of no use, right? No one will see it. So that is again the same with the websites that we have, You could create the most stunning website and keep it on your computer. But if you're not hosting it anywhere, it's of no use. You need to upload it to a server so that it should be accessible and viewable over the internet by other people, So for that, you have different servers. You can host your, you can create a web server, host from there as well. you can make use of the server services which are there as well. Okay. So that is what all we need. So let's say how now putting all of these things together, Yes. So putting all of these things together, say you open your web browser, right? What we do, that is the basic thing. We go to our web browser, right? Now the next thing is you type in a domain name, you give any name. Let's say I write www.google.com. Yes, this is a very basic example. Now your browser will show you the web pages of the domain name that you entered. Let me show you that as well. It's simple. We have been doing that. All of us do that, right? So I'm here. I'm writing maybe like google.com. Okay. So I've got Google over here, right? That's right. Just Google. You'll see plenty of pages which have come up, right? This is search. This is search. Now this is the page that you need. So you go to that. But have you wondered how the web browser, it knows what information to display over here? I'm just writing Google, right? And I got the Google. But how does it know that it has to display those things? So each website will have a website address, right? So each website, they have a website address. Coming back to whiteboard. So there is a website address for each website. Okay. Now each domain name is tied. So you have a domain name, and the domain name is tied to the IP address. So we have IP address also, and each domain name is tied to this IP address that we have. Okay. Of the web server where it resides. So let's say the google.com, where does it reside? It's tied to that particular IP address, or that is the web servers. Okay. So IP address, they are managed and tracked via DNS, which is domain name server. Okay. So DNS, it works very similarly to something like, let's say a contacts app on our mobile phone. We have contacts app, we have contacts, all the contacts are there. You open up your contact app, right? You type in the person name, and your mobile phone, it returns with the person's phone number, whatever the information it saves for that, right? Now you can then decide if you want to call, email, or text that person. So when you type a domain name in your web browser, your web browser is actually conducting a series of inquiries over there as well. Okay. It's not that simple. If you think that you just go on the internet, you write something down, you enter, it gives you the result. It's not that simple. It searches for that information over the internet. Okay. So when you type in a domain name, so you give in a domain name, write in the domain name, then what happens? Your web browser is actually conducting a search, okay, or a inquiry, you could say, and it starts to look up the IP address. So the IP address, which is, you could say tied up with the domain name. So it searches for that IP address. So we are not aware of the IP address, but there is an IP address attached to the domain name, okay, which locates the web server, which gets you the position of the web server, right, where it is. And that web server is hosts the web pages of the domain name and submitting a request to that server for a copy of the web pages. That is the work. Once the information is there on the web server, it sends back a response. If it's a successful response, you get the page displayed on your end or on the client machine. That is the process. It's a lot more complicated, but when we talk about it, it's simple, right? So that is how it or things work here. Okay. So now let's take a couple of questions. So the first is, I've been asked what is web hosting, right? I have think means I think that I've already tried to cover this point. It's but still it's for the sake that to get you guys started. What is web hosting? Anyone? If any one of you can think and just let me know. So hosting a website is nothing, or a web hosting is nothing. It's just a service, you know, it's just a service that you provide. You try to put up your website over the internet so that it becomes accessible to all, that is your web service. That is your web hosting. Now, the next question that I have is how internet works, right? So any one of you who can type in over there, just raise your hand and let me know that, what do you think, how internet works? Any one of you who wants to answer this? That's great. Let me, okay. Can you type it down in the chat? What do you think is the process? Piyush? Okay, you want to know. I was asking if any one of you knows how it works and could answer. No, okay. So there is a lot of process which is involved, how internet works. So firstly, you'll be required to connect your system or PC with any router or modem to establish a connection. And the connection is the base, of the connection. So when you open the browser and you start typing something over here, like, for the example, google.com, your system, it's going to push a query, we talked about domain names, IP addresses. So it's going to push a query command to your ISP, which is an internet service provider that is connected with other servers. There are not many servers out there, not just one, that store and process the data. Now the web server will start indexing the URL that you've entered, and it's going to fetch the details in the numeric format from that, okay? So let's say it's trying to find the IP address from there. Next is your browser will start sending the HTTP, which is hypertext transfer protocol. It's a transfer protocol for sending, and receiving data back and fro. So that's a request that the browser sends where you are trying to, reach and send a copy of the website on the user system, The server will send data in the form of small packets. So these are called packets, how the data is transferred. And once all the packets, they are received at the user's end or on your laptop or the client machine, the browser will start arranging those packets. And, later it will form like a collective file, the HTML file, which needs to be displayed over there. And then you'll be able to see the content of the website. So this is the process of internet, how internet works, how it fetches to and fro data for you. Okay. The next question I think that I have over here is, what is a firewall, right? Again, I'm asking anyone who is aware of what is a firewall. You might have heard of firewall. So firewalls are, kind of like a network security that it monitors the incoming and outgoing network traffic. It determines whether to allow or block some traffic based on any kind of what you say based on a defined we can say security rules that we have. So the primary purpose over here is to enable some non-malicious traffic, and avoid any kind of unwanted data traffic, or protect your system from the viruses and attacks. So a firewall is a cyber security tool that helps you filter the network traffic, and it supports users to block malicious software from creating in the internet in infected computers over there. So the next question is, what is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? So it is, what do you think? There are a number of, HTTP stands for hypertext transfer protocol. It's, it provides some communication between different communication systems. When the user makes a HTTP request on the browser, then the web server, it sends the requested data to the user in form of web pages. Okay, so when you will be doing HTTP, it's the application layer protocol, and there is a different layer which is called as TCP layer as well. HTTP, it's a stateless protocol. So, each transaction, it's executed separately without having any knowledge of the previous transactions, which means that once the transaction is completed between the web browser and server, the connection is lost. Okay. Whereas when we talk about HTTPS, it's hypertext transfer protocol secure. Now the HTTP protocol, it does not provide the security of the data, while HTTPS, it ensures security of the data. Therefore, you can say that HTTPS is a secure version of HTTP protocol, and it allows for, transferring the data in an encrypted form, So that is to provide encryption, you might have heard of something called as SSL, which is secure socket layer. So this protocol, it uses a mechanism which is another thing from a different thing, which is called as asymmetric public key infrastructure. Okay. So HTTPS is secure. So HTTPS is the SSL certificate. Okay. And it's an extended version of HTTP. The only additional feature is security. So I think we have almost come to the end of a discussion, the end of our first class over here. I'm going to meet you in the coming class. So in the coming class, we'll be providing you with, the topics that needs to be covered. So I just like you guys to prepare a bit ahead and be aware of maybe a few terms, and then see you in the coming class. So it was nice interacting with you guys. There were so many good questions that have come up. So I hope that this kind of enthusiasm is going to continue for the rest of our classes as well. See you guys in the coming up. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.